Sorry to interrupt you again, Paul. We'll come back to you shortly, but first of all, bring in the audience again. You say in the back row.
Hello there. The BBC and other Western outlets of media have been using unsourced material for journalism, such as Twitter and Facebook. This is part of, I would assume, an agenda to spread certain types of news as opposed to others. They take second items in the news coverage. It takes a lot of time out of valuable news periods just to talk about unsourced material that really sends a very biased message. This unsourced material never talks about Ahmadinejad supporters. It's always about the other camp. Is this not a malicious activity on behalf of Western outlets of media to
Certainly, Tim,
be very biased in this approach?
Good. Yeah, thank you, sir. I mean, obviously, I don't think there was Twitter around in your day as BBC Middle East correspondent, Tim. But how would you judge that? The people with Twitter are actually only from one group, largely, in Iran, aren't they?
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is watching Al Jazeera and the BBC in Beirut, where I was, I saw a lot of material through these sources, which we were restricted to. The BBC, everybody was restricted to because the journalists weren't allowed out of their office. No camera crews were allowed on the streets, other than those of the authorities, the Iranian authorities. So this was the only source material people had. Now I saw a lot of shots, I must say, through these sources, of people beating up Revolutionary Guards and kicking them on the floor. Both sides were being shown. So I don't accept that point at all.
But there are selective clips and is unsourced, isn't it?
And they made that point. All these channels were saying, we don't have confirmation of this. They showed the killing of this young woman.
Can I come in here?
I mean,
it could have been that they show other clips of the opposing side with unsourced material and say this is also unconfirmed, but they only showed one side of the picture.
It's quite simple. If you're a journalist and you cannot get material in a legitimate way, you have to get it in any way you can.
Paul, I tell you what, just quickly before coming to you, very quickly, as a professor of journalism, what do you reckon about Twitter and its role now? These are unsourced material, as our guest said up there.
The media is changing. Citizens journalism, even with the 7/7 attacks here, you saw people in the tube, in the underground. I think it's something that's going to happen. More and more people carrying mobile cameras. There is a problem of lack of sourcing, but it's instant.
Well, isn't that a big problem?
And it is dangerous, yes. But, I mean, those pictures will be shown. And when I was poacher turned gamekeeper, when I worked with advising the British military in places like Iraq on how to handle the media, because I've been a media minder as well, on both sides of the fence, and I'd say feed the reptiles, give them as much information as possible. That was a basic military philosophy with the Americans and the Brits, British Army, was to give as much information as possible. And if what they did in Tehran, you know, couldn't get out, couldn't do anything, weren't, you know, having access, then of course journalists will go anywhere to find it. So you have to, you know, it's a good idea actually to talk to them.
Very quickly, very briefly, we've got one question.
Gaza was covered. I mean, Gaza, they were refusing to take in, you know, footage that was coming out of Gaza. BBC, CNN, and others refusing, while press and others actually picked up even Arab journalists locally to report. These other outlets actually refuse to do that. So it's not really just the issue of being hungry for news. It's actually also, you know, the point is this, 3,000 or thousands of people going out in the street, it becomes they're against the government. In Britain, 2 million of us went against the illegal war, and nobody said this is a democracy.
Well, listen, we've got to have one question before we go. We're desperately short of time now, but I'd like to come to Julie Lung. Julie?
I'd like to ask the panel, why hasn't there been a platform for free speech, thus resulting in the demonstrations?
So, free speech. What would you say, Professor, about the free speech in Iran? Why is there not more of it? That's what these guys are saying, that journalists should be free and others should be free to speak out.
Well, I would like to agree with the point that you made earlier on, and that I don't agree with the government policy where they have narrowed down the debate in the country. I do understand to an extent why they do it, because they do feel under siege. You have tens of foreign television stations beaming into the country. Though I don't agree with it, I think that the method to an explosion of information, to give out information, is the best way forward. But that doesn't answer the issue of you know, the Western media being biased, and the fact that you know, they take a very negative line. It doesn't help the situation. Iran...
We're running out of time.
Okay.
In a nutshell, then. We'll come to the rest. No, we'll come to the rest of you quickly, please.
Freedom of speech.
I'd like to interview the British Prime Minister too, but that's not going to happen. Very briefly, I think that the fact that we had the debates, the presidential debates in Iran before the elections, were extraordinary, and they were more hard-hitting than any of the debates that I've ever seen in Western countries. And I think that shows that Iranian democracy was maturing, but unfortunately, due to many issues, both external, internal, I think that the last couple of weeks have been unfortunate.
In a nutshell, we've got to be very quick. Paul, what would you say about the issue of free speech in Iran?
Disaster for the country and for the media worldwide.
I think Iran has been very open in its broad sense over the years. I've reported from there, been able to do a lot more than I could in many Arab countries. On this particular occasion, when it was crucial, Iran really blotted its copybook, and it set itself back years.
Final word from you.
Iran is more open than all its regional neighbors, but also when there is a riot in the street. What we did in Bradford was actually anyone who picked up a stone and admitted was given 4 years. Everybody who picked up medical cocktail was 8 years, and whoever threw it, 15 years imprisonment. You know, those who commit riots are not legitimate people who are actually causing and standing for legitimate demonstrations.
Masood and gentlemen, I'm afraid, sadly, we've run out of time. Thank you very much. Once again, if you'd like to take part and be part of the audience here in London, please call our hotline on 0208 728 6472 or send us an email at forum@presstv.co.uk. Well, thank you again, and I'm sorry it's a bit rushed, gentlemen, at the end there. There's a lot to say on this subject. But from me, Phill Rees, it's goodbye until next time.